let's talk about another element here. Very important to the valley is affordable housing. There's a housing shortage in the valley. There is concern about the economy is picking up, but there's always a concern, and we saw the Dow go down quite a bit today, about bringing in a business and making this business friendly. One point of demarcation in your candidacies is over the California Environmental Quality Act, which many have said is one of the reasons why we live in the state that we do, because we do take the environment seriously, and we require development to prove that they will mitigate whatever environmental problems that they create. Another argues that CEQA is being used by one company to stop another company from building. So, Senator, let's start with you. You've been a passionate defender of CEQA. Let's talk about why. Do you believe there should be any reform of that law?
Well, I think it's important to understand that CEQA does not actually stop any building. CEQA is a law that says before you develop or build, you must reveal what the environmental impacts are going to be of your project. That's really all it is. So, of course, anyone can sue you and go to court. I mean, the courts are abused all the time by people filing suits, filing frivolous lawsuits, but it doesn't mean you take away their right to go to court. What you must do, in my opinion, about CEQA is resolve the issues faster. And when I was chairing the Judiciary Committee, several of the things that we did was to shorten time that could be used in order to settle a case or to have a case be adjudicated. You would have timelines. If the timeline wasn't met, you win. And so I think we can do that. We also approved the use of special masters because, as you know, the courts have been cut to ribbons. So there aren't as many judges as there used to be. There aren't as many courtrooms as there used to be. And I think the secret really is don't take away our right to know what the environmental impacts are going to be. That doesn't serve the public. What serves us is let's have adjudication be settled faster.
Mayor?
Thank you. This is, I think you're right, Conan, a point of demarcation. And in the environmental debate that we had in the primary, I think we had a much clearer line drawn than was just drawn. I think there, Sheila, you said that we never lost a good project to a CEQA challenge. And you said to the extent people wanted reforms, and your quote was, boo-hoo, cry me a river. I have a different
Not
view.
about reform, I'm sorry.
I have a
That's
different
just
view.
incorrect.
I have a different view. Because when I served on the Santa Monica Council, I saw that law, which, by the way, is a tremendous law and has protected neighborhoods all over our state, and it's fantastic. It is true that litigation can be used to try to stop certain kinds of projects. This law, because of the way it's written, can be used in a very aggressive way to stop good projects. I have seen it happen. So that's a place, I think, where we disagree. Calling for special masters and expediting review of CEQA claims is reform. So saying you are against any reform, but you favor special masters, isn't really consistent. You got to say, yes, I am for reform. I'm for careful reform. I'm for environmentally sensitive reform. And I recognize the costs imposed by certain aspects of this law are significant, and they have a significant effect, to get back to your question, on the cost of affordable housing. Part of the rents, we had this study in the LA Times last week, rents in LA are the highest of any city in the country. And they're getting higher. They're projected to rise by 8% in 2 years. 8% in 2 years. You have families doubling up, tripling up in houses in your valley here. I have visited them in their houses. It's an unsustainable practice for job creation, for employment, and for human quality of life. We have to build. We have to build. And we have to be able to build in some timeline that makes the rents on the buildings affordable, whether they're market rate units or affordable rents or very affordable rents. This is a thing that I have a lot of experience doing in Santa Monica because we built a tremendous amount of affordable housing units there with the redevelopment money when I served on that council. I know how to expedite it.
Let's, for some specificity here, as an example, the governor of California several years ago, pipe dream, signed a bill in front of the convention center that fast-tracked to a certain degree and truncated the CEQA process for a football stadium for downtown Los Angeles. It was passed out of the legislature. No applause, please. The Rams aren't coming back. I got news for you. It truncated the process. It went through the legislature. Was that a good idea or not, Senator?
No, it wasn't a good idea. And it wasn't truncated, it was waived. I mean, in many ways, it was waived. And that kind of cherry picking.
Educate me on that, because I thought what it did was that if you appealed the EIR, it went directly to the appellate court, not to the lower court. And that,
right, so that meant that it was waived in terms of your adjudication in the lower court.
Right, but it was heard in court. It just went to the appellate court.
In the appellate court, which, how many attorneys in the audience and judges? Do the appellate courts find facts? No, they do not. The fact finders are at the lower court level. So in essence, what you were doing was bypassing the only level of court that has any expertise in fact finding and going to the appellate court. I did not really think that was a good idea at all. Also, cherry picking so that you can't get CEQA waived for your house or your development, but they can get it waived for a football stadium. I mean, that's not it. I actually supported the kind of reform that Mr. Shriver indicated I was describing. But the reform bills, and there were 13 of them in Sacramento, really didn't want to reform CEQA. It simply wanted to do away with it. It's an inconvenience. So to say that we are not building enough affordable housing because of CEQA is a straw man. That is really not what it's about. It's about the ability to make profit off of housing or not. And that's why the county is so important now, because the redevelopment money is going to come back to the county. The redevelopment money that used to go to the cities, much of it will be coming to the county. And the county has not voted to use a specific percentage of it for affordable housing. Just the other day, they voted a non-specific sort of supporting using redevelopment money for affordable housing. I would want to use a great deal of that money. Also, we're getting a lot of cap and trade money, which I'll explain later because I don't want to take too much time, but I'm sure you know we're auctioning off the ability to pollute as much as you like with greenhouse gas as long as you buy it at an auction. That money is coming from the state to all the counties, and LA County stands to get a good deal. Some of that money can be used for transit-oriented housing. So I think we have a real opportunity to really build and to build here. But unlike what sometimes happens in small cities like mine in Santa Monica, we don't want to overbuild. We're seeing the results of overbuilding in so many places. So there has to be smart growth, there has to be smart development, but not just develop, waive CEQA and build. I don't think that's a good idea.
Mayor?
I think this reminds me a little bit of the conversation about should the state have invested in the Tesla factory to create jobs. The football stadium, I wasn't a Rams fan, I hate to tell you, but the football stadium, the way the governor and the other elected officials who favored that explained it was that it would be a tremendous job creator. It was completely financed by the private sector owner of the football stadium, and it would bring not only the football team but all the allied businesses around it, and that the appellate court, as I think you correctly pointed out, which would do a full CEQA review, even though they wouldn't find facts, they would interpret the law and there would be a full opportunity for members of the neighborhood to mitigate the impacts. They felt that that was an important enough job creator for the whole community that it should be expedited. So I favor that, just like I favored the Tesla investment. I thought if Elon Musk said to me, he'll put up $4, I'll put up $1, would I go into a deal with him? I would. He started Solar City, he started PayPal, he started SpaceX, he started Tesla. He's a good bet on an investment. I think it would have produced tremendous job growth and all kinds of benefits that we can't predict now because it's not going to be here. It's going to be in Nevada. I'm for smart investments done by the government. You have to be able to do two things at the same time if you're the government. You got to provide health care, do foster care and all the social services, but you also have to do economic development. You have to be smart about that. And I know for a fact, my colleague Bob Holbrook, a former mayor of Santa Monica, is here. I know for a fact that affordable housing, and particularly senior housing, was delayed and not built in Santa Monica because of CEQA challenges to the buildings. And I don't believe that there was overbuilding of affordable housing in Santa Monica. We built more affordable housing than any other, on a pro rata basis than any other city in California. It's a tremendous accomplishment of the city government, of the redevelopment agencies in those days when we had that money. And it's also correct, I think, not fully correct to say all the redevelopment money is coming to the county. The redevelopment money is also going to cities. Santa Monica will get some. The city of Los Angeles will get some redevelopment money. It will be a very important thing for your supervisor to be able to use the county money, whatever portion is decided, to work with cities with their redevelopment increment when it comes back to them. It won't be called redevelopment. It will be called the boomerang increment to build affordable housing. That's an incredibly important economic development project that the county will have to coordinate with.
Let's move on to another issue, which is deals with another responsibility of the County Board of Supervisors. You have an elected official in the sheriff of Los Angeles County. It certainly appears that Jim McDonnell of Long Beach is going to be the next sheriff. Senator, does that, first of all, what is the biggest concern that you have, taking a look at the way that county jail has been run? Would you have agreed to tear it down and build the new one that the board has agreed on? And do you anticipate that new leadership at the sheriff is going to mitigate most of the problems, or is that your hope, that we've seen with the sheriff's department for the past several years?
Sure, I'm an optimist on it. Trust me, I think there's a lot in that question that I'd like
I
to
apologize for
no,
that.
but I mean, I'd sort of like to unpack it. I probably would not have voted for the jail the way the supervisors ended up voting for it. Thousands of beds, not clearly delineated how many would be for those who are incarcerated with mental health issues, not clearly delineated whether the services would be there and whether they would be sufficient. What Jackie Lacey, your district attorney, wants to do and has been very clear about, and we had a conversation about this the other day, is more diversion in the courts for low-level offenders who have mental health issues, more community service to which you, community treatment to which you can be sentenced, including residential treatment, but not incarceration. I don't think anyone thinks that people with mental health issues have benefited from simply being locked up and then let out, and then locked up and then let out. It really hasn't worked. In terms of the new sheriff, I have a lot of hopes for the new sheriff in terms of what he might do. Remember that Lee, when he was first elected, brought education programs into the jail, and that was very important. And I think we should remember the kinds of reforms that Lee Baca brought to the jail. A sheriff can do a lot, but there must be a Citizens Oversight Commission. Now, the Citizens Oversight Commission would not have as much power as it does in the city of LA, because in the city of LA, the council hires the police chief and therefore can order him around. In the county, the supervisors do not hire the sheriff. The sheriff's elected. So all we can do as oversight is essentially say, hey, Fourth Estate, hey, newspapers and television, here's what's going on. But I think that's a very, very important issue.
Mayor?
I definitely would not have voted for it as it was presented, since it continues the policy of incarcerating mentally ill people and having them treated in there by police officers. Part of the reason 19 people have been indicted and will serve hard time for constitutional crimes in that jail is because the police officers who have been working with severely mentally ill people there have no training in working with them. It's a terrible mistake, and we've learned, we hope, in the last 20 or 30 years, how to deal with people who have moderate to severe mental illnesses. Do not put them in a jail with people who do not have psychological training. But that's your current policy today. And Sheriff Baca presided over that policy. So it's a good thing that he brought education to the jails. He allowed a culture of corruption and criminality to arise in the jail. And there's going to be a consent decree. The federal government has had to come in to clean it up, with some help from the LA Times, of course. But that's a serious matter, very, very serious matter. $2.1 billion of your money is going to be used to build this new jail, which is going to keep mentally ill people incarcerated. That's the system as it is today. I want to change that. I am not a status quo candidate on this issue. I saw too many homeless people, including too many homeless vets, living in dumpsters and under the freeways in my neighborhood, to accept that these people should be jailed on a consistent basis. It just doesn't work. In Santa Monica, we did train some police officers. We sent them to mental health care training, and they were very successful in working with certain people on the street. That just has to be done. It's a critical thing for it. It's also, by the way, much cheaper to do it that way. It's much more expensive to jail people than it is to treat them in community mental health centers by significant factors. So if you have the attention to the budget that I hope I've demonstrated in my career, and I know I will demonstrate here, and to the humanity of the people you're dealing with, you just can't continue to incarcerate these mentally ill police people in there. And the other thing I would say is you can't really order a police chief around even if you hire them. Santa Monica, we hire our police chief. The concept that the city of LA could order their police chief around is whimsical. If you control any person's budget, oh, I'm sorry. That's a red one, excuse me.
Along the lines, there was a question here with regard to a 5-0 vote by the Board of Supervisors to maintain a relationship, a working relationship with Customs and Immigration Enforcement at the jail in terms of picking out those immigration cases, individuals who were wanted on a serious crime. The questioner was wondering whether you support the county continuing to engage in cooperation with ICE pertaining to immigration matters at the jail. Yes, go ahead, Senator. Would you mind starting?
Are you pointing to me?
Yes. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry, Conan, I didn't. Well, there was a very interesting division. Apparently, the supervisors said that they would cooperate with the immigration authorities, but only as it relates to those who are being held on certain kinds of serious crimes. And I don't really know how they decided to delineate one against the other. What are the serious crimes that are being identified, and you know, what have they done? Generally, I have not favored these holds overall, because they were holding everybody, and they were holding them for several days. Now imagine you've been arrested for something. You are now about to be let out. And instead of being let out, you're being held there because someone said they want you to be held there, the federal government. Think about it. It's actually unconstitutional. So what they had to do was delineate that it was only about people who were being accused of serious crimes. But I don't know whether they meant accused of serious crimes in their own country or accused of serious crimes here. And if they were accused, why are they being held beyond the time that they were supposed to be kept? So I would want to understand that a lot better, because I'm worried when on someone's word you get held in jail for 4 more days. I don't care if it's a federal agency. That worried me.
Mayor?
I think the example that was in the paper showed you what a bad program this is. They held a woman who was selling popsicles outside her kid's school in Van Nuys. That was the crime she was held for. So
Sounds like
to see whether she should be deported for selling popsicles outside the kid's school. So that's a really, really bad idea. As I think it's unconstitutional, but it's also just terrible policy for the county to be involved in that. That being said, to the extent people are being held for violent felonies, as I've traveled around neighborhoods here, everybody says to me, if somebody's being held for a violent felony, we would like the Immigration Service to deport them. Because those people are actually preying on people in neighborhoods where they can get along and commit crimes. So there's very strong support, I think, and part of the policy behind this idea is, to the extent people have committed violent felonies in the United States, this is not about crimes outside the United States, violent felonies in Los Angeles County and are being held, let the federal immigration people come get them and deport them if they've committed a violent felony. That policy makes some sense, and I again, based on my travels around here, a lot of people support that idea.